What's up, guys? Connor O'Hanlon here for another episode of the Greater Society podcast. And today we have quite a lot of things to cover. There is one thing, of course, that is standing above the rest over the, that's an alliteration, I suppose, arrest. But there is the one thing that is kind of standing out amongst all the other things over the last week. And that is, of course, the impending, the upcoming, the inevitable, maybe, arrest of Donald J. Trump. And we will discuss what could happen. What will that lead to electorally? I will answer any of your questions, I think. I think there's going to be some suggestions probably in the chat about what may or may not happen because of this. Beyond that, though, there is the reaction to this possible arrest from Republicans, from the right-wing media, and from Donald Trump's main opposition within the Republican primary for president, Ron DeSanctimonious, and which I will never just call him Ron DeSantis at this point. And then we will look at a story that I actually have written about in my upcoming project. But I had already kind of assumed that people knew this. But this is going to be something that we'll discuss. It's kind of going to be in passing a bit because I think that you guys should watch. There's a longer video on this PBS article about it. But I think it warrants at least some level of, hey, go check this out to understand our history as a country better. And that's regarding Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan and the election in 1980, specifically around the Iran hostage crisis from the late 70s into the 80s. We'll talk about that. And of course, everybody that has been around for the last year, 2 years about watching the show kind of knows my opinion on Ronald Reagan, but this will further cement the opinion. Although, I thought everyone knew this, but this is apparently something that is more revelatory now. Then, as we get deeper and deeper into the show, I might change the order a bit, but we're going to talk about the weird decision or the weird attempt from Emmanuel Macron in France to raise the retirement rate or age, for people living in France and the corresponding backlash. And I think Americans might want to learn to prioritize things like maybe the French do. And then, of course, it wouldn't be a Greater Society podcast without talking about the Central Bucks School Board and some of the news that has been going on this year. Or, not even just this year. The last couple of years, I should say. Basically, the last 2 years. But this one's going to be... That part's going to be frustrating. So maybe I think I almost pulled a clip of Alex Jones breaking his nose just to kind of be a palate cleanser for the show, but he didn't actually break his nose on the actual video, so it wasn't really worth it. He was just bleeding. And in chat, we have French protests are the best protests. And I would say, broadly speaking, maybe yes. I think that there are some, caveats always that you want to say, like we want to be nonviolent and all that stuff, right? But I think the French had the right idea here in pushing back against the raising of the retirement age. Before we dive into all of that, though, which I know that was a long introduction, we do have a lot to cover. We're going to try to speed through it. Not too fast, though, of course. While you're here, especially after the last couple of episodes and talking with different people and having this community of people that has been helping with other projects outside of the show, I want to ask that while you're on the program or if you're listening, that you hit the follow button or hit the subscribe button to help us grow this channel. After meeting and talking with so many people, talking about the importance of independent media, people that are not controlled by certain interests or have I'm not being silenced because of I work for a giant gas corporation or something like that, right? We need We need progressive outlets. We need the ability to talk to other people. I'm lining up guests for the next, like, maybe not next week, but once the tax deadline comes, we're going to have guests like all the time. And I think that would be awesome. So while you guys are here, hit the subscribe button. It really helps us. And hit the thumbs up if you're watching the live stream. Okay, now we get to dive into the wonderful AI generated thumbnail that we got, which I think we should really take a second to appreciate. And I'm gonna pull it up because I didn't download it here, but I just want everybody to take a look at this wonderful thumbnail that producer, editor, what's up, Juan? How you doing? Producer and editor of the program, Josh, made for us here. And this is AI generated 3 Trumps arresting Trump with his really long tie, of course. I just want to really highlight, I don't normally highlight the thumbnail, but this thumbnail really made me laugh today, and I wanted to make sure that I shared it. But let's dive into it. What the heck is going on with Trump? Why is he saying this stuff? And why is he alluding to being arrested? Now, recall, go back, way back in time, as we have been, and we will continue to do, to the period so long ago of 2016. And in the 2016 election, Donald Trump and his lawyer, or his former lawyer, now, quote, jailbird, Michael Cohen, coordinated to pay off a adult film star, Stormy Daniels, for an alleged affair that Mr. Trump had with her. Now, in isolation, is this something that we think is wrong? Should it be illegal? Maybe, maybe not. However, when we look at the facts of the case, and of course we don't have all of the facts, we as the public have some of them. We look at and why Michael Cohen is, quote, a jailbird, according to Trump, is because Michael Cohen went to jail because of the payoff to Stormy Daniels. And the only reason why this case is happening in New York is because there's no reason that Michael Cohen would have single-handedly or inadvertently or on his own authorized a large payment that he had to pay out of pocket to a porn star that he did not have anything to do with. He did it on behalf of the former and failed President Donald J. Trump, and at the time, candidate, to try to hush that story. Now, where the real trick here comes, and we will find this out as the actual verdict of the case comes out, is how these funds were sent from Trump to Cohen as a payback, as a reimbursement. Because he paid him back, and there is question as to whether the money came from the corporation, Trump Inc., or whatever you want to call it, the Trump business. And since it was on behalf of basically a campaign expense, now it's not, that's where some of this legality part starts to come in. Okay, well, what is happening here? But there is a potential for the commingling, or the, again, the alleged commingling of corporate funds with campaign funds, et cetera, right? Again, we don't have all the facts. I know people want to say, like, we know everything. I bet I'm as plugged in, I feel like, as you can be without watching the news 24/7. And this hush money has like a number of different clause that it could latch onto that could be potentially damaging to Trump. Now, before we get to the arrest, let me state up front. Is this something that I think is the strongest, most worthwhile case against the former President Trump? No, I don't. There are a number of potential tax evasion issues because, of course, we know that Trump did not pay any federal income taxes for a few years. Now, that might be legit. It might not be legit. That might be something we want to look into. If I was somebody that was leading the IRS, I'd probably want to look into that. The most damning case, though, because there's a bunch of other cases against Trump in different states and in different, district courts. The most damning case, in my opinion, has to do with the potential attempt at overturning the 2020 election, specifically in Georgia, where Trump called and pressured the Secretary of State and Congress, I should say the state Congress, to overturn the election results in Georgia. That is something that should be prioritized. I think the potential for Trump calling for violence on January 6th would be worthwhile for somebody to be charged for these things. But as I talked with a coworker this morning, this is the same type of thing that happens with RICO cases or mobsters, basically, where which also there are supposedly RICO charges against Trump in certain states. But the Al Capone comparison is Al Capone, for those who don't know, was a mobster, a famous mobster. I think everyone knows who he was. But Al Capone didn't go to jail for killing people. He didn't go to jail for racketeering. He didn't go to jail for, armed robbery, whatever. He went to jail for tax evasion because that was what they could get him on. Now, I think there's a number of things, there's a number of things that says that Trump has committed or allegedly committed crimes. Okay, we should investigate those things and we should go after those things and prioritize them. But for now, this might be the straw to break the camel's back that will then lead to other potential investigations, leading to other potential indictments. But as we see here, this arrest was supposed to happen yesterday. According to Trump, he tweeted he didn't tweet, on Truth Social. He said that there was an inevitable, indictment on Tuesday. Now, Tuesday it didn't happen. He called for people to protest and get outside and all this stuff, right? Didn't happen. Nothing came about it. Then, Wednesday, today, the Manhattan grand jury investigating Trump was called off for Wednesday, delaying a possible indictment, sources tell. And there's the journalist. Now, there is, I'm going to see if it is in here. There was an explanation. Nope, not in here. There was an explanation I saw that it is going to more align with the actual, surrendering to the arrest next week. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know that anybody knows that this is the case because there has never, and I will emphasize this, in the history of the United States, there has never been a sitting or former president being indicted and arrested. So, Trump could set history for being the first president to be impeached twice and the first former president to be indicted. It's a good record, if you ask me. Now, let's see where we go from here. This is, here we go. So from here, we get flip-flopping, meatball, Ron DeSanctimonious, Tiny D, Ronnie D, pontificating and talking about how he doesn't know what it would like to be to pay off a porn star. And this is another example, and we're gonna get to why, because Trump responds to this. This is another example of why Ron, Tiny D, DeSanctimonious, Meatball Ron cannot hang with Trump. Despite DeSantis, and this is, look, all the polls suggest this. Not all of them, I should say. Most of the highly rated polls suggest that Trump is beating DeSantis in the primary. However, DeSantis outperforms Trump against Biden. So, as a progressive in isolation, of course I have my association with the Democratic Party, but just as a progressive person, we should all want round 2 for Joe Biden and Donald Trump over Joe Biden versus DeSantis, in my opinion. And it seems like we're going to get that. But here is DeSantis in Florida responding to a question about the potential imminent Trump arrest.
In terms of we are not involved in this, won't be involved in this. I have no interest in getting involved in some type of manufactured circus by some Soros DA, okay? He's trying to do a
Soros DA, which, of course, Trump actually talked about the DA being a Soros-funded DA, which, for those who don't know, George Soros is just a 92-year-old billionaire who happens to be Jewish. They claim that there is no anti-Semitism when they talk about Soros, but whatever. It's a dog whistle, at least. And, of course, that has nothing to do with the charges going against Trump. It has nothing to do with the case against Trump, but it is something that Trump said. So DeSantis is trying to play both sides, straddle the line, and be like, look, guys, I don't like the Soros-funded DA from New York. He's a racist, which I think he might say in this case. But if he didn't, other Republicans say that district attorneys that have progressive ideologies are always racist. That's just what they go to, which typically means that they're black and they think that they're doing reverse racism. Stupid, I know, but that is what he's saying.
A political spectacle. He's trying to virtue signal for his base. I've got real issues I got to deal with here.
Now, remember, this is Ron, don't say gay, DeSantis, saying that the district attorney in Manhattan is trying to play to his base. This is Ron, don't say gay, DeSantis, who literally has been banning books out of Florida schools, who has literally been threatening Disney because they support gay people. He is trying to take away their whatever legal status that you want to call it in Orlando, despite that's the reason why people go to Orlando. Whatever issues you might have with Disney, there are plenty, monopoly issues. This guy is the epitome of playing to his base and literally being sanctimonious and trying to be better than thou and trying to virtue signal to his base.
Here in the state of Florida, we're obviously shutting down CBDC, which is important. We've got so many things pending in front of the legislature. I've got to spend my time on issues that actually matter to people. I can't spend my time worrying.
Like banning AP African American history. That is something that really matters to Ron DeSantis. Or protecting free speech by making sure that people that make blog posts about Ron DeSantis are registered with the state, and they have to pay fines and pay all this money to make sure that they can criticize DeSantis because they're very pro free speech.
About things of that nature. So we're not going to be involved in it in any way. I'm fighting for Floridians, and I'm fighting back against Biden. That's what I do every single day.
So there you have DeSantis. Now, he was basically, I don't know that was the full clip that I needed, but basically, DeSantis just goes on to say, like, I don't know what it's like to be paying off a porn star. Okay. So, what happens next? Well, Trump tweets out this. Or, sorry, Truth Socials. He truths this. A video or a picture, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. It's an article from Midas Touch, which says exclusive. Ron DeSantis. This is a couple weeks old, but Ron DeSantis partied with underage girls at drinking party while teaching at a Georgia school. Now, Trump truths this out and then deletes it. And everyone was like, oh, okay, like he must be editing, or he must have done it on accident or realized it was a bad idea. No. He added more crap to his truth, which I will read now. And I will do a great impression. Ron DeSanctimonious will probably find out about false accusations, all caps, and fake stories, all caps, sometime in the future, as he gets older, wiser, and better known, when he's unfairly and illegally attacked by a woman, even classmates that are underage, or possibly a man. I'm sure he will want to fight these misfits just like I do. Now, the obvious thing here that Trump is trying, of course, like, we should dig into Ron DeSantis' past. We should look into, I think, look, I'm just going to toss it out there. I'm not going to talk too much about it right now, but Google Ron DeSantis and Guantanamo Bay and ensure, like ENSURE. Ron DeSantis is not a good guy, but this is what I mean, where Trump is just not, he's not like messing around with him. He doesn't give a crap. So he's just like, all right, like I'm just gonna say that Ron DeSantis, again, the don't say gay guy, might be gay. Which, if he was gay, the only reason why people would have a problem with him is because he's been passing these bills, but everyone else would accept him. But because of his anti-LGBTQ plus stances, it would be a lot harder to be like, oh yeah, whatever, not a shock, whatever. But his continued effort to attack, queer and trans people makes it a lot harder to be like, oh yeah, whatever. If this story is real, which we will find out, I'm sure, or like as things unfold, it'll be interesting to see as they continue to go. Now, let's just take another look at one more of Trump's truths. I won't make you guys listen to me doing another Trump impersonation, but this is all caps, all caps. Can you imagine the great New York City Police Department correctly referred to as New York City's finest, who for the first and only time in history endorsed a president, me, and honored me as Man of the Year, having to defend and protect the defunders and cop haters of the radical left that want to put their greatest champion and friend in prison for a crime that doesn't exist? That was one sentence. And then he just goes ellipses. All the while, the Soros-backed DA allows murderers and other violent criminals to freely roam the sidewalks of New York? ? The guy is alluding to, of course, that he wants the police to, not coordinate, not cooperate with the district attorney, which again, Wouldn't be unheard of in certain cases, but look at Philadelphia. But this guy is trying to underride it. In the chat, we have, what are the chances Trump will make DeSantis hit his running mate should the indictment not go through? Which is actually, that's what you're expecting. Honestly, I think there is zero chance that Trump picks DeSantis as his running mate. I think that if Trump is the nominee, he's going to pick a woman. I think that'd be the smart move, honestly, after having a terrible vice president. Again, Trump also didn't give a crap on January 6th when they went after Mike Pence, but Mike Pence was an evangelical radical. And I think if Trump wants to, look, I'm not giving advice to Republicans, but if he's trying to win an election, he would pick a woman to win over certain populations, specifically suburban white women, because that's where he's weaker. And Democrats have been gaining in those populations because that demographic is more amenable to gun regulations or to, being accepting of the LGBTQ plus community. I mean, there's a number of different reasons, right? So I think there is a literal 0% chance that Trump picks DeSantis. Now, do I think he's actually going to get indicted? We don't know. Do I think that if he gets indicted, he'll go to jail? No, I don't think he'll ever be in jail. That's my opinion. In the chat, 600 pages of exculpatory evidence from Trump's defense attorney revealed momentarily ago. He may have not violated campaign laws as the hush payment intent could be deemed as a means of public image. Yeah, I mean, this is why I'm saying, like, all of this is, like, alleged. And this is why I'm saying anybody that's saying this is 100% the fact doesn't actually know that. This is an ongoing case. We're not in the courtroom. We don't know everything. So I don't know if that's a defense of Trump exactly. It still might be illegal because, again, remember that Michael Cohen ended up in jail because of it. But it might not be an issue of campaign finance. We don't know. And that's why I'm saying some of this stuff is just like, we have to talk about it because this is insane. But I'm not going to tell you one way or the other, like, this is the exact facts, because we won't know until probably next week. Yeah, and then yes, the women demographic throughout the country is very important. Especially, like, again, if you're looking at Republican drop-offs, and again, I'm not giving them advice, but the swing towards the Democratic Party has largely come from suburban white women, and that's where you look at, like, where I'm from, Bucks County. There's a huge contingent of voters that sway an entire election in Bucks County, Montgomery County, Chester County, these Philadelphia suburbs, basically. But yes, as pointed out also in chat, bodily rights and control, those things are also important, and the Republicans threw the baby out with the bathwater when they overturned Roe with that. And again, that's why you see a big swing towards Democratic candidates and the Democratic Party overall, on top of everything else, in my opinion. That those are also two big facts as to why. Now, I just thought that this was a funny clip. I wanted to talk about this with Donald Trump Jr. So I just want to pull up something real quick. A definition that I want to share with everybody so I read it correctly. All right, so here we have Donald Trump Jr. on his hit show, Triggered. And on Triggered, he is going to tell us what he thinks about the indictment, and tell us what he thinks about Meatball Ron. And let me know what do you think about his voice.
He gives a crap about law when you're weaponizing your office in a leftist state and where everyone there agrees with you. Most of the prosecutors there don't know what the hell to do about this because even they...
All right, hold on 1 second. I'm going to rewind that a little bit. And then I'm going to show you another clip. And you have to tell me, this is the first thing, when I heard this clip, this is the first thing that came to mind when I heard his voice.
There don't know what the hell to do about this because even they, like the most radical of the radical left,
the most radical of the radical left. All right, here we go. This is what it reminds me of, and I hope it doesn't go to a commercial here, or an ad.
Are you choking? If you're choking, let me know. Okay, you're choking. I'm gonna just hit you with the hind.
What the fuck are you doing? I'm fucking watching.
You're gonna die because
This is what he
you
sounds
tried
like.
to choke in front of Caleb Went. Unbelievable.
Poppers are here. Who wants one?
Popeyes!
You know I could save your life.
So, it's stupid, but I don't know why he sounds like that. I really don't.
realize that it's insane. In all fairness, like, isn't she like paying his legal bills or something like that? I don't know. But you know, the district attorney is gonna district attorney, right? The Soros-funded district attorneys are gonna do
The Soros-funded district attorney, again, we're the wink and the nod towards the far right about this. Come on, guys.
guy that's bankrolling them wants them to do.
The guy that's bankrolling him, George Soros, who just, happens to be. So, of course, they're all on message about that. Somehow they all are on message about that.
The law be damned. The Constitution be damned. Your rights be damned. Because
so that's a good picture. This has nothing to do with your rights. This has nothing to do with you. This is a fact of the case with Trump in the United States under the Constitution, not breaking the Constitution. There's nothing to do with anything he just said.
when you hate America, what difference does it make? This prosecution isn't based on facts or the law or anything that even resembles that. It's
What's it based on?
pure Bolshevik-style witch huntery.
Bolsheviks?
The hot
Bolsheviks? It's based on Bolshevism. Now, for those who don't know, I had to quickly make sure that I pulled up the full definition. Bolshevism is the communist form of government adopted in Russia following the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917. So he's talking about, well, he doesn't know who Vladimir Lenin is, but he's talking about Bolshevism coming from the Leninist revolution in Russia, which, again, he probably doesn't even know what that is. Bolshevism is just another wink and a nod towards globalism and Soros. So you can draw your own conclusions here. But that's really what he's doing this act for. So that's Trump, that's Donald Trump Jr., and that's DeSantis, all in one thing, all in one fell swoop, okay? So let's take a pivot, and instead of talking about modern times, let's once again take a little journey back to the late 70s and the early 80s. Everybody who took a American history class, or even just probably a broad history class, knows loosely about the Iran hostage crisis in, I believe, 1979. Well, yeah, it was 1979, and into 1980. Now, this is again, I said it in the beginning of the show, this is something I thought people knew. I thought was like common knowledge. But this was I believe I read about it in a book called How Democracies Die. And I believe I read about it in Tom Hartman's book as well. But Ronald Reagan, who used to be a much more like used to be the patron saint of the Republican Party, has kind of now been replaced by Trump in many cases. Ronald Reagan and his administration, his administration definitely did a few things as well. But his campaign has now largely been confirmed interfered and dragged out the Iran hostage crisis to ensure a presidential victory for Ronald Reagan against Jimmy Carter in the 1980 election. Now, I'll pull this up. This is not like something we're going to spend too much time on. I would suggest going and looking this up because it says new claim. This is not a new claim. This is something that, again, I feel like I've known for years. If it's printed in books, it's been out and known for years. But this is being confirmed by prominent Republicans in the former Reagan administration and former campaigns. So I'm just going to read a little bit here, and then I suggest that you guys go and maybe I can throw the link in the chat and at some point check this out. Because for those who are interested, this is a big bit of history. And again, this is on we're learning things now because of declassifications. You know, we're learning that, you know, Malcolm X was assassinated and the FBI had a solid hand in that. We're learning about the FBI writing letters to MLK while he's in a jail cell telling him to kill himself. All this stuff now, which, you know, as it's happening no one knows this stuff, but no one knew that the Reagan administration or the Reagan campaign was trying to drag out the Iran hostage crisis, the same way that people didn't know that he was arming people in Nicaragua to overthrow governments and then sell crack cocaine. But now we do know. Now we do actually know. And this is why it's important to know your history and to know, like, when these things come out, we have to at least highlight them. So in 1980, a prominent Republican sought to sabotage then President Jimmy Carter's re-election by asking Middle Eastern leaders to get a message to the Iranians. Keep the American hostages until after the election and Reagan will give you a better deal. That's according to a New York Times report. Jonathan Alter, author of His Very Best Jimmy Carter, A Life, joined Jeff Bennett to discuss. So now there's a whole article here discussing this and talking about the claims with the Iranian hostage crisis. So this is a large factor as to why Reagan ended up winning in the 1980 election. Once again, there's a book about how basically from Nixon to Reagan to Bush in 2000. I mean, I guess Gerald Ford, you can ignore him, but because he didn't. Yeah, he's a different story. But Nixon had Watergate, Reagan had this, Bush had the 2000 election, which obviously wasn't exactly one for one. There's a lot to draw that the Republican Party is a straight line to fighting Donald Trump and filling those shoes very quickly. Now, that is something I suggest that you guys look up, read that, listen to that, or just find another article. But I just wanted to put it on your radar. It's very important. Now, we'll do a little, I don't know if I want to call this a palate cleanser because this is like even more stupidness, but here we have podcaster Tim Pool, who makes a living off of fear mongering, who seemingly wants to have a second civil war. And he tweets this out. It's going to be funny in 100 years when they are like, I don't know who they is in this. Quote, a major catalyst for the Second Civil War was when Democrats demanded the right to sterilize children and amputate healthy body parts, but faced opposition from Republicans. Now, this guy talks about a second Civil War more than anybody I've ever seen. Tim Pool is supposed to be someone theoretically on the left. I've been told, I remember a couple weeks ago, or maybe a couple months ago at this point, someone in the chat was arguing with me saying, Tim Pool's not right-wing. Tim Pool's not right-wing. This is Tim Pool saying that because trans people exist, that there's going to be a second Civil War. Like, that is the literal interpretation of this. I'm sorry, but you have to be an absolute numbskull. You have to be an absolute bozo to think that this is even a drop in the bucket of what would ever lead to a civil war. And again, we've gone over this. But for those who don't know, the overwhelming majority of people who transition do so under review from doctors. In many places, if they're under 18, they have to go through 2 doctors that sign off, their parents' supervision, and I would have to pull up the exact facts, but so I won't throw a number on it. But let's just say 99.9% roughly of kids that transition are not actually getting surgery. They're not doing anything like that. They are getting gender affirming care through hormonal replacement therapy. This is an absolutely stupid take because nobody is advocating that we're just gonna willy-nilly start ripping body parts off and like that is not really happening. It's not happening. Nobody's advocating for that. We're advocating for safe medical transitions when applicable for those who want it, for adults that want it, and for kids that are experiencing gender dysphoria and have the approval of the doctors that they talk with. Because they're the trained professionals, not podcasters like me or like Tim Pool. But that was the I saw that tweet and I just had to talk about it. Now let's go to France. So in France, Emmanuel Macron, Prime Minister, the president, actually. I suppose that the Prime Minister is slightly different. But the president, Macron, wants to raise, and I believe the age, yeah, you see it right, I see it right there. The age from 62 to 64 for retirement. This will make it harder for people to live out the rest of their lives with dignity. As we talk about in America, well, actually, I don't know if people know this, but prior to, if we did not have Social Security, roughly 1/3 of seniors would be living in poverty. Before Social Security's invention, basically in the United States, seniors would starve, they would go homeless, seniors would suffer. This is why I talk about Social Security and Medicare being the greatest two pieces of legislation in American history, advocating for the working class people. And at some point, they become retired because that is what the American dream is supposed to be. We should want people to retire. It opens up better jobs for people. It opens up housing because then they will downsize. They will want to, live out the rest of their lives being happy, sustaining themselves, and doing things that they want to rather than working until you die. But in France, for some reason, Macron wants to raise the age from 62 to 64. Now, I'll point out that 64 is still under the retirement age from in America. I believe it's 67. So this is where we have to look at it as Americans and push back against our government. But it's important to compare because in France, which, by the way, has more socialized parts of their publicly owned parts of their economy and government than Venezuela, even though they're not considered socialists. It's just interesting to note. France is trying to do this, and people are not having it. So what do? Well, the parliamentary system in many UK parliaments allows for a vote of no confidence in pretty much at any time, which it would basically be like at any point if we got fed up, like if Joe Biden's the president right now, if any of us just like we just all just got fed up, we could have a vote of no confidence during his administration. Now, France doesn't have the same system that we have. They have the parliamentary system, so they can do this. Now, they called for it, but the vote of no confidence failed in removing Macron as the president. But it is important to note that they had to vote. And as you see in the picture here, but I'm going to pull up others, people did not, I'm going to mute that. People did not take lightly to it. This is people out in the streets protesting in France, standing up for seniors. Again, look at all these people. You see young people. You see people middle age. You see people that are old. This is solidarity. This is a working class intersectional movement for standing up for, frankly, older people. But this is what you need. And again, I say intersectional. Obviously, it's France, so there's a lot of white people. But this is what we need to see. When people take action and they make their voices heard. Now, I also have to show this video because it's honestly pretty insane. But this is in France as well. And this is fires in the streets while people are just eating inside. It's the "this is fine" meme. So there's just fires out in the streets while French people are protesting. The most important part is just to note that they're standing up for their rights. They're standing up against, this stupid, frankly, move. I don't know why that this is like even a proposal. Like, what is the need for this? What are you saving? In America, we have the ability, and I bring it back to America because, of course, this is where we live. But in America, we have the ability to not only protect Social Security, but to expand it, and we choose not to. So, which comes back to the age-old theme of this show, that all politics is a choice and a prioritization of issues. When you have the levers of power, when you have the reins to power in this country, you can choose, Social Security, which Trump is hammering DeSantis on, rightfully so. They want to cut Social Security. They want to cut Social Security. They're going to cut Social Security. I'm just going to protect it. Although Trump wanted to cut Social Security and Medicare, but he says he's going to protect it. I mean, even Joe Biden, which some people might not like to hear this, but in the Obama administration, Joe Biden tried to sell out Social Security and Medicare, frankly, for the, quote, grand bargain. You can look that up. And tried to basically cut Social Security and Medicare to make sure that the government was funded and they didn't have a government shutdown. Of course, it didn't happen because the Tea Party was so radical. So we actually benefited from the Tea Party being so radical that we didn't sacrifice Social Security and Medicare. But remember, if you cannot take care of the weakest, if you cannot take care of the most vulnerable, if you can't take care of your sick, your old, the poor, then the country is no better than any other country. If you cannot, it's literally written on the Statue of Liberty. Bring me your tired, you're sick, and you're poor. I think that's what it says. If you can correct me if I'm wrong. Because those are the people that we need to provide, not a handout, a hand up, to get on their feet, to live the life that they want. And some people need the government assistance their whole life. That's okay. I mean, I know that sounds radical, but some people need it. Some people need that. And for the people that can survive and can thrive, can create businesses and do all that stuff, that's great. We need that too. But for every person that's doing that, there might be another person that really needs the help. For all these people that are working jobs, busting their tails, there's people that are homeless on the street. Without these government interventions, because let's keep in mind, even with government intervention in this case, charities are not enough. The fact that we have, and there's this right-winger in the chat having a good old time, the fact that we have someone like George Soros, and let's even break it away from George Soros, we have Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, that have billions and billions of dollars, that have more wealth than all of us combined. That should be not something that we take with pride, but something that we should look at, evaluate, and ask, why is that? Why are we okay not providing housing to people, not providing food to people, not providing health care to people, not providing the right to a retirement, not providing medical, pharmaceutical drugs that people need to live? Why are we okay with that? Why are we okay making that choice? And now, there's not one single politician that can make that choice. There's not one single activist that can make that happen. And that's why you see movements in other countries like this that stand out, because in America, we have been conditioned at some point to accept that we just work hard, and that's that. There is no shame in working hard. You should want to work hard, but you shouldn't have to work hard to barely scrape by. You shouldn't have to work 80 hours a week to barely scrape by. You shouldn't have to work 3 jobs, both you and your spouse, to make sure that your kids can go to school. I think back to last week, I was on this Zoom call with Bernie Sanders. I didn't actually get to talk to him, and he talked about FDR, and he brought up the loose concept, and I'll bring it home a little bit more here, of the 20th at that point Economic Bill of Rights, or the second Bill of Rights, the Economic Bill of Rights. FDR had it, and Bernie ran on the 21st century Economic Bill of Rights. But I think it's about damn time that we, as Americans, as people that care about our neighbors, our communities, our friends, our family, recognize that people are working hard. And if you work hard, you should be able to make it. And for those who try and fail, you should be able to get back up. And you shouldn't be able to get back up with with their boot on your neck. You should be able to have somebody that helps lift you up. I know this is a lot of theoretical and rhetorical talk here, but this is the driving force of this show. This is the driving force of creating a greater society. The reason why I named it this show is because the Great Society and the New Deal were leaps and bounds better than what we had before. And the second we keep saying it's good enough is the second that we stop progressing as a society, the second that we lose impact on a global scale. We should demand better. We should look to people like these folks in France in the street. We should look to other countries that have different systems than us, learn from them, and want to improve. I'm reading through David Goggins' second book. He talks about how once he made it with his first book, he got lulled into a sense of complacency. And that's what I feel like America is right now. We're lulled into a sense of complacency. We're good enough. We're good enough. We're the best. We have global hegemony. We're the best. But nobody that rests on their laurels, nobody that doesn't continue to improve, the fighter that doesn't go up in the mountains to train. You know, if you look at Muhammad Ali, you look at, or even the fictional, you look at Rocky in Rocky 3. The fighter that doesn't keep honing his skills is bound to lose. The fighter that doesn't hone their skills is bound to get knocked out, frankly. And for all these warmongers that want to LARP and talk about China, they don't want to take care of the people at home. They don't want to take care of the homeless veteran. They don't even want to take care of the veteran that went and served overseas. They don't want any of that. They want corporate domination. They want laissez-faire capitalism, which they don't genuinely want because they want the government to help them, their friends. They don't want monopolies being broken up. No, because that's actual capitalism. That's actual capitalism. They don't want that. They just want crony capitalism, which might be an extension of capitalism. Maybe Donald Trump Jr. should teach us about Bolsheviks and the Bolshevik revolution a little bit more, as he talked about on his podcast, Triggered. Now, the last thing I want to talk about today is, and that was, man, I don't know what got me set off there, but that was a long rant. The last thing I want to talk about here, we bring it right home yet again. Always got to end the show with some Central Bucks School Board, which this is reporting from Emily Rizzo, who does a lot of coverage on school boards in southeastern Pennsylvania. Specifically, has been covering the Central Bucks School Board a lot lately. Central Bucks School District spent over $250,000 to diffuse anti-LGBTQ criticism. The school district has spent at least $250,000 on attorney's fees and public relations services since May. The full amount is likely much more. So here you have the article. I'm talking about the amount of money spent. Here you have the consulting firm, Dwayne Morris, who was hired to represent the district, I'm reading, in connection with the ACLU of Pennsylvania's federal complaint alleging it created a, quote, hostile environment for LGBTQ. Now the U.S. Department of Education is investigating the district. Of course, this is all on top of the fact that the Central Bucks School District is being sued for wage discrimination based on gender. This is on top of the book banning. I cannot emphasize enough how many times I have to come on this show and talk about the degradation of one of the greatest school districts in Pennsylvania by an absolutely ludicrous, politically driven, right-wing school board. Now, I don't know if anybody else saw this. A few people did. On my Twitter, I responded to I'll be Sir Paul Martino. And I invited Paul Martino to come on the show. He didn't respond. The tweet got a lot of likes, retweets. He did not respond. Because I would like to ask him a few questions. And look, I'm not gonna trap him. We're live. He could come on here and talk about whatever he wants, right? But I want to ask him the questions about this because as somebody that seemingly has a stake in privatizing public education, that somewhat, maybe I'm misreading it, maybe seems to have some level of interest in making money from privatization, or just has an ideological bent for that. Now, his wife is running in Region 8 for the Central Bucks School Board. Paul Martino, who spent over $500,000, he could donate to the school board instead of spending my hard-earned tax dollars, your hard-earned tax dollars, paying a consulting firm to CYA for anti-LGBTQ discrimination, for anti-LGBTQ propaganda, rhetoric, taking down pride flags, because that can't happen. We can't have pride flags in Central Bucks. Come on, guys. It's not like this is, oh wait, I graduated in 2014. Guess what there was in CB West, Tohickon, Groveland? There were pride flags. And did you know what? People ended up being okay. In fact, I think that more people are better off because of that, because we were being more accepting of it. Because kids that are my brother's age are more accepting of the LGBTQ plus community, because we, I say broadly, have been around people. We have life experiences. People, older folks want to talk about life experience. We've been around with people that we might be different. I'm a straight cisgender dude, but I've been around people of many different backgrounds, and it's made me more empathetic with other people's situations, made me more accepting of other people. And you know what? They just exist. So why shouldn't they be happy? I don't know why that's like a controversial thing to say. You exist. Trans people exist. I know that might be a shocker. And I think that they deserve to be happy. I think that gay people deserve to have every single right, and trans people deserve to have every single right that you and I ask for. In fact, I think that we all deserve more as we loop back. But coming back to this school board passed these resolutions. They are banning schools from having certain books. They're allowing parents to say, not this is, I'll close with this little rant here. Here's the thing. I went to these schools. Did I say that already? I went to these schools. If you, as a parent, didn't want your kid to read a book, guess what you could do? Hey, teacher, hey, Mrs. or Mr. X, Y, and Z, I have some sort of reason, whatever it is, religious, even ideological, whatever it is, you as a parent have a right to say, I don't want my kid to read this book. Now, again, I might disagree with you. I think that people should read. I even think that more radical stuff, and I don't mean like radical, again, put the caveat because people want to be silly. But I think radically challenging ideological books, like things that are actually stimulating for kids, should be in public libraries, because that's how you learn. Engaging with stuff you disagree with is how you learn. Now, they're not banning stuff that they disagree with. They're not banning stuff that kids disagree with. They're banning LGBTQ authors, queer authors, black authors, brown authors, all these different things. It's not based on the actual stuff in the book. But looping back to what I was saying, if you have a book you want your kid not to read, that's fine. They don't have to read it. You don't want them to read Harry Potter because it has wizards in it? That's fine. You go to the teacher, there's a policy for this, will assign a different book. But the fact that you are going out of your way to ban the book for everybody, for every kid, because remember that there's not that many, now there's more now, but there's really not that many in the grand scheme of things, of books, movies, shows, for representation for gay and trans youth. So if they don't find themselves in these stories, then what does that tell them? What does that reinforce them? Now, it might sound silly, but we all identify with characters. Hell, I have an entire closet full of Thor comic books because I identify with that character. It's fake, but I feel connected to the character. Now, if there's a character in a book that might be trans, that might be gay, that a kid can identify with, connect with, feel represented, why is that a bad thing? And that is the crux of this entire debate, if you want to call it that. The school board is wasting, frankly, our money paying a consulting firm who now has quit because the consulting firm doesn't want to be associated with the school board. After taking sacks and sacks of money, they're running out like the Monopoly guy. It's insane. I cannot keep watching the degradation of the school board. So now, again, I should say can't watch this degradation of the school district. The school board can screw off. I am putting this out there now. I don't know he'll ever see it. I know that there are Democrats that disagree with me offering it. I know that there are Democrats that don't think I can handle it. I see you. It's an open invitation for Paul Martino to come on the show. I want to talk to you, and I want these questions answered. I want people to ask you these questions, and I want an open discussion because it doesn't seem I'm not trying to lock anybody in. I'm not trying to, ambush anybody. I want answers. And I think a lot of people want answers because I actually went to these damn schools. I want to have a family that my kids, if I ever have any, go to good schools and I can be proud of them. And I can be proud that I was a Central Bucks Buck for the West High School football team. But this is just going to continue to erode if we don't do anything about it. So in the interim, if you want to, before I start doing my own plugs here, there's 2 candidates that I'm going to tell you to go check out. There's 5 total candidates that's running for the school board here in Central Bucks, for Democrats. And again, I'm a Democrat. Martino is not a Democrat. You're welcome to come on. I will interview you fairly. But short of that, there's 5 candidates, Central Bucks, Neighbors United. Go find them out. But my 2 candidates in Doylestown that you can have an impact on are Rick Herring, who's running in Region 8, and Susan Gibson, who's running in Region 6. These 2 candidates you should be able to go and check out. Donate to them if you can. Look, $5, $10, $15. When I say that this school board race is going to be the most expensive school board race maybe in the history of school board races, I know that might sound like an exaggeration. It might be, but it also literally might be the most expensive school board race, like, at least this year. And my guy is Mr. Martino, sir, is going to probably drop a fat stack of money into this election. And the only way you beat money is with people power. So if you can, please go find a candidate that you can support to fight this, because it's going to take all of us to win back these. Before I go, could you skim chat real quick? There's a lot going on there. Yeah, pushing talented, sane teachers out of the district. That's the case for sure. Abolish all the school boards. I think there needs to be some level of governance over the schools for sure. I don't know. I think that the school board should be elected at large. I don't think that it should be regions drawn, but that's drawn. That's just my opinion. Um, local governance is important, obviously. Um, the claim of supposed indoctrination is nothing more than an attempt by the right to justify forcing LGBTQ people back into the closet. That's it. I agree. That existence is the problem. Yep. We're going to lose the incredible teachers and support staff. The reason why this district has been so esteemed and desirable to raise kids in. Yes, that is totally true. And again, as we keep seeing, like, this support in the community, I talked about it in the beginning. I kind of alluded about the independent media side of things, but the schools, the community, these are the things you want to have. Doylestown, especially, is such a rich place, and I don't mean like money-wise, although there's a lot of rich people. It's a rich place to live because of the culture, because of the community, and this erosion underneath it is like taking the legs out over and over again. It really sucks. A lot of talk about trans people in here still. Property taxes should not fund schools. I agree. Now, I don't know that the exact formula should be. When I ran for state rep, we talked about this because there is a fair funding allocation that I agreed was a better platform. Now, again, looking at it from a tax perspective, how you allocate that stuff, because I would have to look at it like case studies where they decoupled it, because I think you could make the argument that like state income taxes should fund it or federal income taxes should fund it, but the jump to it would be pretty major step, I think, if you were to do it across the country. Bank bailouts are back. Yes, they were. Does it seem unethical to allow someone the choice to end their own life by a doctor? I don't assume the issue is if indeed their choice, if they're being pressured. That's obviously immoral. Wow. Yes, a lot of deep talk going in here. Last part here, I'll read this and I'll respond to it, but this is great. You guys are popping off in the chat today. Patrick's Time says, "Where is the anti-war party?" Well, I'll tell you, my friend. Although the Democrats maybe at times they fall short of being the anti-war party, this is for those not maybe watching the chat like I am. Patrick says the establishment is pushing for World War III. Now, I don't agree with that, actually. I think there are certain parts of the, quote, establishment, because I don't know that you and I agree what the establishment is, but the establishment, broadly speaking, isn't necessarily pushing for World War III. People that have interests in corporate outcomes, profits, they maybe have shares in certain companies, want to ensure that America has global hegemony or control. And when we lose that, or I should say, if we lost that, there would be problems, obviously. But it's different in saying that we need to flex and we need to go and invade, as we talk about. Actually, this week represents the 20th year anniversary of the invasion of Iraq. A war that was illegal, just period. There were at the highest end of estimations, 1 million civilians killed. Lowest end, 100,000. Somewhere in between there, civilians killed in the Iraq war. Now, that is something that, as progressives, I think almost every single person in the chat is going to agree with this, and probably everybody listening to this, saying that we do not support wars like that. We do not support invasions of countries that didn't attack us. And It's totally different than the Ukraine war. The war in Ukraine is about Russia invading a sovereign nation. I suggest that you go back and listen to some of the previous episodes, but Russia is invading a sovereign nation, Ukraine. And if we, not as the global policeman, because that is not what we are, but if we let it sit back, let people just start invading other countries, and NATO doesn't do anything about it, the UN does nothing about it, then we're not standing up to a dictator who is trying to flex their muscle and their might. And that makes Russia much more of a threat than if we just armed the Ukrainian military. Now, Patrick's, if you were talking about, of course, the ramping up of, let's say, anti-China rhetoric, there are people in the establishment that do that. And I think that we would agree. I don't know if you're Democrat, Republican, progressive, far right. I don't know. But some of the stuff you're saying, it's a mixed bag. So I just want to make sure that you know, progressives are the anti-war people. The far right is not that. I can tell you that. Right-wing Tucker Carlson, those people are not anti-war. I can promise you that. But with all of that being said, I feel like this was a good episode, guys. I'm glad that you were here with me, hanging out. If you're listening, this is what it's like being on it live. You should come watch the show live on YouTube. And hit the subscribe button. If you guys are watching live on YouTube right now, we can get to 130 subscribers maybe. We release clips of the show at least twice a week, so do check those out. Hit the thumbs up on this show while you're here. It helps us grow in our reach. If you are somebody that is driving to work or whatever, you don't want to watch the show, you can listen to the program on pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts. So you can follow, subscribe, however you say it for your choice of podcast app. You can follow the show on Instagram, TikTok, and on Facebook, Greater Society Media. You can follow me on Twitter at Con O'Hanlon. You can go check out my tweet asking for Paul Martino to come on. I think that would be a good interaction. I think it would at least maybe help cool the temperatures. Maybe. One could hope. If you are willing / able to, you can support the show at patreon.com/Greater Society Media for as little as $3 a month. And you can join the Discord server to chat with other pals, other friends of the show. And look, if you want a designation of the friend of the show, just DM me on Discord. Let me know who you are, because that way I can identify it. I'll give you the designation of friend of GSP in the Discord server. We need some pop and action in there. Make sure to send your clip suggestions, guest suggestions, all that stuff in the Discord server, because that would be wonderful. But with all of that being said, I finally get to go do nothing. Tax season's just wonderful. It is just wonderful. But until then, next week, guys, stay safe. Peace.